Hello, and welcome to the Infor OS App Designer series. In today's video, I will define exactly what is context messaging, and will walk you through setting it up so two widgets can interact with one another. So let's first define what exactly is context messaging within Infor OS App Designer. With context messaging, widgets are able to send and/or receive business context messages. This allows widgets to interact with one another. A simple example of this would be a dashboard that filters a customer orders widget based on what customer was selected in a customer listing widget. This is currently limited to widget communications within workspaces, but we are actively working on Infor Business Context communications that will allow ERPs to talk to widgets contained in the Smart panel of the OS portal. In this next part, I'm going to walk you through how to set up contextual messaging between two simple M3 widgets. The first widget will be a simple list of warehouses from M3, and the second widget will be a list of items filtered by the warehouse selected from the first widget. Before I can implement the messaging, I need to start by setting up my two M3 data services first. Starting in the Infor OS portal, I'm going to select App Designer from the OS landing page. On the left pane, I'm going to select Data Services. Then I'm going to select New Data Service from the top right. I'm going to select Ion API for the service type and then click Create. For this first data service, I'm going to return back a list of warehouses in M3. For the search term, I'm going to type in LST warehouses and then select Infor M3 as my suite. Of the two that are returned, I'm going to select the most recent version 2 API at the bottom. I'm going to name my data service M3 List Warehouses and click Next. Now I can see a list of all the parameters that were returned from the API. I'm going to keep all the default settings and test the data service at the bottom. After a successful connection has been made, I will click Next to move to the Output Parameters page. Here, the M3 root element and output parameters have all automatically been populated from what was defined in the API gateway. I can test the data service again at the bottom to make sure the output parameters look correct as well. Once that is successfully completed, I can click Next and then click Finish to create my first data service. Next, I want to create a data service that will list out the items by warehouse. I'm going to click the New Data Service button again and select Ion API. This time, I'm going to search for List Item Warehouse by Warehouse and select Infor M3 as the suite. I'm going to select the most recent version 2 API at the bottom. I'm going to name my data service M3 Warehouse Items and then click Next. Notice the list of input parameters at the bottom that were retrieved from the API. Because I want to filter this result set by the warehouse selected in the previous data service we created, I'm going to modify the WHLO input to achieve this. I'm going to set the warehouse location field to required, and then I'm going to give it a default value of 001. Now if I test the data service at the bottom, it will filter the response body by only showing items with a warehouse location of 001. When it comes time to build out the widget for this data service, I will be passing in the dynamic value of the warehouse location via context message instead of using this default value. I am then going to click OK and Next. And then I will keep all of the default output parameters as is and will finish creating my data service. Now that both of my data services have been created, it's time to create my widgets. I'm going to switch over to the Draft section from the left panel and click New Page. I'm going to select the simple list widget template for a list of my warehouses. Then I'm going to give my widget a title and a name of M3 Warehouses. For the data service, I'm going to select my M3 Warehouses data service I created earlier. I'm going to select my Label 1 component and bind it to the WHLO data property. Then I'm going to select my Label 2 component and bind it to the WHNM data property. Now that I have my key field of WHLO bound, I can now add in my context message to send that value. Select the list element at the top and expand the context message section at the bottom. Here we have the ability to send and/or receive a message. In this case, I'm going to select the Sending button. The context message dialog will appear, asking you to specify a name for the context message as well as what value you want to send. The message name should be something that is unique to your application, and this message field is case sensitive. I'm going to go ahead and specify warehouse name as the message name, and for the source field, I'm going to select the WHLO data property value to send. I'm going to click Save at the top to save the message settings, and then finish creating my widget. Once that widget has been created, I want to now create my second widget that will receive that message. I'm going to click the new page icon at the top, and again I will select the simple list widget. I'm going to give this widget a title and a name of M3 warehouse items, and then I'm going to select the M3 warehouse items data service I created earlier. I'm then going to select my label 1 component and bind it to the item description data property labeled ITDS. Then I'm going to select my label 2 component and bind it to the item number data property labeled ITNO. Now I want to add in the receiving piece of the context message. I'm going to select the list element at the top and then select the receiving button. For the message name, I'm going to use the same message of warehouse name that I defined in the sending piece. Then for the source field, again, I will select the WHLO to filter by warehouse location value from the first widget. I'm going to click Save, and then I will click Finish to create my widget. After both widgets have been created, published, and deployed into a workspace, I can now test it out. Notice now when I select a warehouse from the widget on the left, it will filter the results of the warehouse items widget on the right. If I add the context viewer widget from the widget catalog to my workspace and specify the same message name that I defined in the widgets, I can see the actual value of the warehouse location that is being passed to the warehouse items widget. These context messages can be used to interact between a whole dashboard of information. Some widgets can also be set up to receive as well as send, creating much more informative and immersive dashboards for the user. This concludes today's video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the Infor Technology YouTube channel for future videos. Thanks for watching.